Welcome to this video, round 11 of the candidates, and this video is about the game Topalov Karjakin. Topalov is basically out of the race. He's on -2, being last in the field. Certainly he had imagined something better to happen to him in this tournament. Well, Karjakin on 50% has some chances still, because he's got a game against Arnold left. So he has got the chance to win against Arnold, getting a point himself, and actually making Arnold lose a game, which seems tricky in this tournament. He's very solid. So, but in addition to that, he would also win another game. So let's see what happened here. I was a bit critical of Karjakin in the last game, as he simply didn't continue to play in a position which still seemed to have some life in it against Karjakin. Okay, but still, let's see what happened here. Topalov opened with knight f3 c4. He's very flexible, of course, also playing e4. He's basically playing all openings. And here we transpose to an English opening. Karjakin is playing c5 here because he does not want to get into a Queen's Indian position with the bishop on b7. He plays the Queen's Indian. For example, if we just for argument's sake put this on the board, here he plays the line with bishop to a6, which is considered to be quite okay for black. In the game, Topalov uses this move order with g3, and if now black wants to go for the same, white is simply delaying the move d4. So now black needs to commit with his bishop, and there is only bishop b7 making some sense now. Bishop a6 does not make much sense here without d4 being played, and this way white has tricked black into a Queen's Indian that he does not want to play. It's not bad with the bishop on b7, but not Karjakin's repertoire. So he plays c5 in this position, transposing to a symmetrical English. Here black can play e6, leading to the hedgehog, like that, for example. Or he can play the move g6, the double Fianchetto, which has a very solid reputation and played by Karjakin here. White is developing, and black plays d6. Yeah, the queen capture on d4 early is very typical in this symmetrical structures of the hedgehog and the double Fianchetto, because white does not really want to play a quick knight who takes d4 to exchange bishops. Black is mostly helped by exchanges because he's slightly cramped. You know, he's on the 6th rank, and white is on the 4th rank. He's just more active, and black likes to exchange some pieces. So queen d4 is designed to not allow too many exchanges. Yeah, d6, rook to d1, and knight to d7. Yeah, the move knight c6 is playable. It's not a terrible move, but normally you would like to have your knight on d7. This is the more harmonious setup, as it keeps the bishop open, and the white queen has decent squares anyway. It's not particularly great to put it on c6. Knight d7 is normal, and now bishop e3. Yeah, what white really like to do is to play queen to h4 and bishop to h6. This would be quite nice. The only problem is if you go queen h4 here, black is going to play h6, and at the right point might even go g5, and it's questionable what the queen is doing there. So white is first developing this bishop, and only after some more moves, rook c8, rook c1, a6, and b3. Yeah, and now black is slowly but surely running out of useful moves, so he has to castle, and only then white switches over with the queen to get in, well, not that, to get in bishop h6 to exchange the strong bishop on g7. Yeah, Karjakin now played the move rook to c7. This is a funny little move. One idea of it is to play queen to a8 and this way increase black's influence on the long diagonal. Topalov now plays the move g4. Yeah, this is a tough move to explain. To be honest, I don't really know these kind of structures of the double fianchetto here so well, because I simply play a different setup against it. I play with an early b3 and bishop to b2, so I'm not so well advised in this structure. What I know is that white with this g4 push, which is played quite often, with this push he wants to play obviously g5, and then there is sometimes the idea to play bishop to h3, putting some pressure on this diagonal. White, of course, also could have played bishop to h6, which was the original idea, but it somehow is not considered to be that dangerous, it seems. It's not played that often. g4 seems to be the move that white is setting his hopes upon. And here Karjakin plays a very funny move, rook c8 back. This looks completely crazy, but I looked it up. He actually had played this move before in a game in, I think it was 2012. I need to check this. 2012, yes, it's black against Dmitry Yakovenko, very strong Russian GM. Yeah, the idea is that after a possible g5, like Topalov played, this is actually a new move. Bishop h3 was played in the Yakovenko game. After this, a move like knight d5 is not with a tempo on the rook. This is probably the explanation for moving the rook back, but yeah, it's all slightly strange. Here, after knight d5, black is not attacked on c7, so he actually can do something else now, but I'm not quite sure what it should be. A move like e6, I'm unsure about. It looks like it's weakening d6 quite considerably, and I'm not so sure what black's move is here. Anyway, can you play b5 maybe here? This might be tricky, as there's now knight takes e7 threatened, and black absolutely never can take on d5 in this structure, simply because it opens up the c6 square. This would be simply a very bad setup with knight c6 in the air. Yeah, I'm unsure. Knight d5 is not completely ridiculous, I think. Yeah, well, knight e4 was played, and this has a completely different idea, but not a bad one. Note that the rook is going back to c7. That's really funny. Okay, here, this was Topalov's idea, exchange the h5 knight, and now queen to a8. This was the idea of rook c7 again, but it's all pretty weird. Okay, Topalov now with knight to e1. It's very difficult to make any headway without allowing this exchange. Black's pressure on this long diagonal is already quite substantial. And after knight c5, Topalov played the very funny move queen to h1. Really nice. Yeah, you look at this symmetry on the long diagonal. And I learned that there's actually a term for that, which I never heard before. I forgot who coined the term. It was a Dutch player, and the name he gave this formation was Ratty's rifle. I really like that. It's similar to Alekin's gun. This queen on the first rank, rook on the 7th, the Alekin's gun. Or Alachens, I cannot pronounce that correctly. And this would be Ratty's rifle. Very nice. From Richard Ratty, obviously, who was one of the big innovators for flank openings in the 1920s mostly. Yeah, very funny expression. And yeah, we got trades on the long diagonal. No big surprise there. And yeah, well, how to assess this position? I actually thought that after knight d3 and the capture, white recaptured with the pawn, which I very much liked. Very good move in my opinion, strengthening this pawn formation. I actually believe that white should have a slight advantage here because of two factors. You have this pawn on g5, which is always a bit of an annoyance as it keeps the h-pawn on h7. And it also somewhat hinders black's kingside. I mean, how do you get the king into play? White has some easy ideas to activate the king, or maybe even to f3. Well, black, well, this is not really leading too much, and at the end there's h7 weak. So black probably needs to get rid of the pawn, and he played f6 very, very quickly right now. And we had this exchange now. So white has the slightly better pawn structure here. He's got one pawn island, two pawn islands against three, so its structure is somewhat better. And there is b6 at the point to attack. Note that black can almost never play b5. As, yeah, well, here there's even... Yeah, well, this is even promoting now. But this is the general point. White can take and play a5, which leads to a complete disaster. Here there's even the check and a5, and I think you're actually promoting already. You cannot play b5, which is a slight problem, as b6 is always under fire from the bishop on e3, which is a quite strong piece. So white has the slightly more comfortable position here. I think, however, that Karjakin did a very good job in defending. I mean, it's not like he's under huge pressure, but white is always a bit more comfortable. Yeah, he centralized the king, which was also allowed by playing f6. And then here pushed with g5, which makes lots of sense. Gain some space on the king side. And possibly you even at some point can play h4 to get a passer on the h-file. Rook to h1. e5. This is a curious move. Very surprising from a positional point of view, as it puts a pawn on the dark squares, and even more so if we have this now. There are three potential pawns on the wrong color complex, the complex of the bishop. But it also has some positive effects. One positive effect is that black maybe is able to play rook f7 and get the bishop back. Probably other way around, you're not blundering b6. And then you have some counterplay on the f-file, on this pawn on f3. Very interesting strategic idea. I keep saying strategical, but someone pointed out to me that this is not a word. Yeah, I agree, it is not a word, but it sounds nice. Still, I'm going to try to use strategic from now on. All right, b5. Yeah, normal move. Want to fix this weakness. And here Karjakin played rook to a8. He, it seems he didn't want to play a5, putting yet another pawn on a dark square. But you can play rook a8 anyway. It makes sense. Maybe you get the chance to open this up and actually use the a-file yourself. Yeah. And a5. This is a typical Topalov move. He's not the kind of person who would sit on his position and try to do something. Those little moves, slow improvement. He always wants to break through if possible. And maybe it was also an idea to put Karjakin under more pressure with him having limited time. Topalov, as you can see, had much more time on the clock. Karjakin was down to about 10 minutes, which is not a real time trouble, but still. Yeah, a5 is a pretty typical breakthrough combination, and supported by the bishop, of course. Yeah, Karjakin took the pawn, which is, I guess, the only move. This is probably, maybe you can do that actually. Is this so bad? Yeah, probably it's not really great. White can even take here. Yeah, the other move is just better. I mean, this one's for sure. takes and b6. This was Topalov's idea, but in fact I believe it seems to backfire. After that it's only black who is gaining some chances. He piled up on the b6 pawn, and now rook a2 play. This was Topalov's idea. In an ideal world he would pick up both pawns and just win the game, but black in fact has a defense here, and it is the capture of this pawn. At first it looks a bit strange because, well, there is this move, and this is what Topalov played, of course. Yeah, it is a big pin here on b6, but black already has gotten those pawns, so he can always try to give up material and use the a-pawn. In fact, here he could have pushed the a-pawn, which would have been an interesting alternative. It, however, seems to lead to a draw with best play. But still, Topalov would have needed to find that. This also shows that this operation with a5, this breakthrough operation, is really backfiring, because even here black is able to basically force a draw. I can show you the draw if you want. This is with rook takes b6. All other moves lead to some kind of trouble for white. The problem is simply the a-pawn running. So if white takes with the bishop, just to show it, there's a3, and white pretty much has to play something like rook a2. Yeah, or maybe you can do it a bit more precisely like that. This may be somewhat more precise. Yeah, and here you're just suffering with the pawn down. Maybe you can hold this position somehow, but it's not something you would like to try. If there are better ways available. What else is there? Yeah, c5 you could also try, but black can take this, no? And now give up the exchange, which is leading to a position quite similar to the main game, but it's in a slightly worse form. The move that draws is rook b6, and this is with this line a3, and now white is just in time to stop the pawn with the bishop. And in fact it is really the case that this pawn is basically tying the bishop to the defense of the a1 square, and black is also threatening to get a passer on the h file or break through with g4, and this basically means that this bishop is busy with the pawn, and at the same time you keep the white king busy with the defense of the king side. It's really a complete draw. If you give it to a computer, it will give you 0, 0, 0. I played through some lines, and it really leads to nothing. So not really a problem for black, this line. He could have done that, but he decided to take on e3, which is the better move actually, because this actually gives black chances to win the game. The ensuing endgame, however, is very, very complicated, and I must admit that today only have limited time, and I'm not quite sure if I really can give a definite answer about the evaluation of the endgame. I can show you some lines, of course, but it's not really conclusive. Yeah, okay, white has taken on b7, of course, and now black played bishop c5. If we just take stock, 6 pawns for black, 4 for white. From a purely mathematical point of view, black has 2 pawns for the exchange. But the main thing is here that he is very nicely coordinated. The a-pawn is rather quick, can possibly be supported by the bishop on d4 for the promotion square on a1. And there's of course also the play on the king side with the h-pawn. We get very quickly to a critical position. Rook to b8 played by Topalov, a4, rook d1, and h4. You really need the h-pawn. Yeah, and Topalov now played the move, first he gives check, okay. Then he played the move g4, not allowing black's king to enter quickly. Yeah, and then exactly here, there is a very interesting suggestion made on Twitter, on the social networks. Today chess is really busy. You get lots of interesting information. I never was much of a Twitter fan somehow, but during the candidates you really very often see statements by strong players who evaluate positions, give ideas, and other interesting additions to the information that you already have from websites and other sources. So here the Dutch Grandmaster Erwin Lamy pointed out that a3 could probably be winning for black. Yeah, it's I went through some lines, but I'm not really sure that I can conclude that black is winning. He certainly, and I think he also wrote it in Twitter that he had checked it with the comp. Everybody does that nowadays. And he said, okay, he believes this might win. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. I'll show you some key ideas. King c2. This makes sense. Yeah, you need the king to stop the pawn. And now the key move is bishop to e3. This is doing many things. It covers this pawn, and it prepares a further breakthrough by black that we will see soon. Yeah, what move now? What move now? I personally have looked at rook h8. White can basically just mark time here. It's hard to do something great for white. I want to show you the key idea after rook h8. It's e4. This is the key idea for black, giving up this pawn to enter with the king. If we look at f takes e4, for example, there is king e5, and after rook f8, for instance, even king d4. So black is quickly activating his forces, and yeah, he will win quite a number of pawns, and there's the h pawn still. This can be very, very sharp and complicated. I believe in comparison, if we go back here, white could also try the move rook a8, attacking the a pawn. Here also, black is playing the move e4. This is the idea in all of the lines to activate your king. F takes, king e5. Rook f8. It basically always leads to this position. King d4, just the same with rook h8. King d4. And it's not clear to me how white should now try to defend. If we look at, let's say, what about rook f5, for example? If we look at that, then there's bishop f4 and the h pawn will run. Okay. This is not even playable. If you go king b3, for example, black will take, and something like that is too much. There's bishop f4, and then I'm running with the h pawn, getting the g pawn as well. So this is also not on. What should white do actually? The computer suggests e5, which is interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting move. If the king now takes, check. I'm getting this check in, which is very nice, as this is a checkmate. And so black would need to return back to the 6th rank. Probably black shouldn't take with the king. Let's look at this. If what happens here, check. And now this capture. Yeah, that's also very tricky for white. Those pawns are hard to keep. Check. Maybe give this check. Yeah, it really looks very critical for white, very critical. I mean, how do you actually stop the pawn if I'm going bishop f4 and h3 without giving up everything else here? Don't even see a move really. What about, let's say I play a waiting move like that. There is this, yeah. Yeah, that's just very strong. Always this e4 idea. Now black will get all the pawns and win with 3 pawns for the exchange. The c-pawn is basically meaningless. Can always take it with the bishop. Yeah, it's very, very dangerous. That's clear. What I had looked at briefly in the analysis before I started the video is rook f3. I had this in my notes. a2, king promoting.
Check.
King takes. Again, looking very critical, but there is at least a counterplay that white can try. Now you can hear even e6. What did I do? I did something wrong. Yeah, of course black is not promoting. Sorry, I've looked at the wrong column. I need to take, of course. Sorry. And now white is going for this counterplay, I believe. c5 takes e5, c4. King a2, c3, and now I think white probably needs to look for the c pawn. Rook f1, bishop c5 to stop the e pawn. A very long line. Rook h1, c2, e6. Is this winning for black? Probably this is also winning. King e3, king b2, king f3 takes. I can try that. It's very very funny stuff that you can try here. So maybe just take it, yeah. And then white pushes here.
Check.
I'm not 100% sure if this really is a win. I mean, this line is by far is now 20 moves deep from the a3 suggestion. I mean, black has serious winning chances. This is clear. This is really clear. So maybe this is it's certainly what he should have tried. That's clear. But if it wins, I'm not so sure about. I have, as mentioned, a bit limited time and had limited time about preparing. This is what he should have tried, but it didn't do. He played bishop f2, rook h8, king g7, and here it's probably over because the rook is always stopping the h pawn, while the white king is looking at the a pawn. In the game, they made a couple of more moves, but it is somewhat like a fortress. And here, draw agreed. Not sure if fortress is the right setup, but white is just always staying with his king to guard against the a pawns. The rook is guarding against the h pawn, and black cannot easily move the king over because he would probably lose one of the pawns, or these pawns. The bishop cannot at the same time guard the g pawn and the a pawn, so it's really pretty much dead draw here. Yeah, maybe Karjakin had a chance with a3. I'm sorry that I couldn't really get this to a conclusion. This was not possible. But it looks very dangerous. My gut instinct is it should be a win for black. This move a3 that I had shown here after g4 here, the push a3, and not my move, but from Lami's tweet. It would have been dangerous. So very much of a fighting endgame here between the two players, and yeah, no win for Karjakin, which was very badly needed. All right, I hope you enjoyed the coverage here. Maybe if you've got time on your hands, this is a very interesting endgame to look at. It's a very sharp with many pawn breakthroughs and race situations. So very much worthwhile to analyze. All right, thanks for watching.